This is Campus Notes, your weekly higher ed show with Guidebook. Real stories from the people building the campus experiences that drive yield and retention.
Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of Campus Notes. And really excited today to be joined by Alyssa, joining us from the University of Pacific. Alyssa, firstly, thank you for coming in and chatting with us today. It's good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's hot in California, and so it's been a good summer, but we're starting to feel the heat. The dog days of summer are starting to kick in for us.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I think it's like I'm based in the northwest of the UK, and it has been a very dry, hot summer here. It's very humid today, so I feel you. I can empathise definitely. But we're not here for the weather, I guess. I think we're here today to do belonging and important questions around your event. So I kind of just want to open things up with, what does belonging look like at the University of Pacific?
Yeah, so I think for us, belonging it's a long process, right? And so in higher education, we always talk about the first 6 weeks of the semester for our incoming first year students. And that's really when they start to formulate those senses of belonging. And so I think for us, it's part of a process, but I think when we really start to see students feel that sense of belonging is when they really start to identify Pacific as their home. And so we hear a lot of students say I'm leaving for the weekend. I'm going to be back home. And they're not referring to their off-campus home. They're referring to Pacific. And so when we start hearing students say that Pacific is their home, that's when we really feel like they belong. And when they're excited to bring other students to campus, or they're excited to bring their parents back for parent and family weekend, I think it's when they really start to fit in on campus and feel that sense of belonging. And so for us, it's a little bit of a process. It's not something that's built just right through one program or event. It's more of a process, but I think when they really start to feel like this is where they belong and that is their home, that's for me what belonging looks like on our campus.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you're going to talk about a process there. So is this a mapped out process? Is it something that you're measuring or able to measure, or is it something that you're kind of paying attention to as you go through these different steps that you've already kind of got built?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. And so we do have a retention team that focuses on identifying triggers within the first 6 weeks of the academic year that could cause a student to maybe withdraw or not feel that sense of belonging. And so I think it's a little bit of both. I think we're tracking that. We use a couple of different systems to look at students' early grades. And so that kind of identifies if students have a C or lower in their early grades, then we'll do some outreach to those students to make sure that they feel like they're supported. But I also think it's just things that we identify, like you can see on campus. And so it's that feeling that you get. And you can, when you talk with a student and when you watch them interact with their peers, you can kind of see the difference between those students who feel like they truly belong and then maybe those students who are struggling a little bit. And so I think by doing a little bit of the observation, but also that data and that background work, I think it kind of marries the process. So it's easier for us to identify and track those students.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And you kind of mentioned, there's not one specific thing, but a lot of different things contribute. And I kind of want to tap into, what your signature event is, and how does that contribute to belonging? How are you designing or thinking about your events in a way that obviously help with student onboarding, but also think about that belonging piece?
Yeah, I think our biggest signature event is our week of welcome. And so we do our orientation and week of welcome a little bit differently from other institutions. And so we bring all of our students back the day of move-in, and that after move-in is their orientation. So they do a 2-day orientation, and then we go straight into our week of welcome. And so I think that really kind of kicks off the academic year on a high note. All of our campus partners come out for programming. We have our returning students come back early as well. And so they're starting to engage with returning students and students that they'll see in their classrooms. And so I think that is really our signature experience is that orientation process. And I enjoy the way that we do orientation. Some institutions will do orientation throughout the summer. And so students are flying to campus or driving to campus for a couple of days and then leaving. And that's really, I think, difficult sometimes for yield and retention. And so having our students all come on one day really kicks things off on a really high note. And I think that a lot of our programs are led by our campus partners, but the ones that are led by our orientation leaders, those are about 50 students that serve as student leaders throughout orientation and week of welcome. Those are the events that I think really focus on belonging because those students can talk about their experiences at our university, and then the students that they're guiding kind of start to identify with those experiences and get excited for it. And so the programs that are by students for students, I think are really our signature programs. And I think that is what contributes to that first kind of like week of school and like that sense of belonging.
And is that something that you've changed? Because you sort of mentioned there how the other institutions do it differently and approach orientation as like a summer program, and you've approached yours differently. Is that something you've done intentionally? And you sort of mentioned yield and retention there. Did you do that to kind of influence one, or is it how it's always been and then you've just seen different results because of it?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of iterations of orientation at Pacific. Previously, before COVID, they did the model, that was before I was there, and so they did the model where they were bringing students over the summer. But I think after COVID, especially, I think students kind of need to like be ingrained on campus a little bit longer. And so I think that it's partly intentional, and I think focusing on retention and yield. We do communications and outreach throughout the summertime, so we're still engaging with our students. Our admissions team does summer send-offs, and so these are like fun events that are focused in kind of like hot spots where our students are located. And so we're taking Pacific into their communities and hosting these events. And so that's our way to kind of stay engaged with our students throughout the summertime. But I think from a retention standpoint, having all of our students together at one place and one time, I think has really impacted retention positively. And we've seen our numbers more in that 92% range from first year to second year retention. And I think a big part of that is having our orientation the way that we have it, where they're coming in right on move-in day and then they're going right into orientation.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, they're great numbers. And what do you know what it was before you made those changes? Is it, you sort of mentioned that you kind of hit the 92%, like where's that moved from?
I think in previous years, we've been closer to 85, 89 range. But yeah, I think in the past couple of years, we've been really focused at that 92 percentage. I mean, our goal is 98, but 92 is pretty good. And so, yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, nice. And thinking ahead to the next, your next orientation and welcome week, like, is there anything you're trying this year? Is there anything that you're, moving away from that maybe hasn't worked? Like, how do you kind of decide whether to kind of just run the same program year after year, or whether it's time to add an additional part to the schedule or different kind of structure or process? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, we kind of really focus on intentionality. And so we do a lot of assessment after orientation and during orientation of our programs. And so we collect assessments and surveys from our students who are going through orientation. We also run a parent and family program. So we're, surveying our parents and families, and then also our campus partners. And so last year we had a 3-day orientation cycle. And a lot of the feedback that we received was that 3 days felt a little bit too long for our orientation. And so we wanted to focus on what aspects of that do we really need to keep, and what aspects of that do we maybe need to refresh or push into week of welcome. What's something that maybe isn't like a necessity. And so our orientation focusing on those 2 days are really intentional. They're focused on more pieces that are like considered like new student checklist or onboarding pieces. And then our week of welcome is more focused on, I guess, like fun activities. And so we've pared each day down. So each day there's a theme. And so Tuesday is like our wellness day. And so that's when we'll be doing our take care fair. That's when we take our students to Target and we take over Target and they get to go shopping. Wednesday is like our involvement day. So that's when we're having our club fairs on campus. And so I think that feedback has been really helpful. But I think when we look at our programs year to year, we really focus on what people are saying. And we really want to be intentional with the time that we have, because we know that it is and can be stressful to do an orientation and then week of welcome and then first day of classes. And so also making sure that our students, get the information that they need, they're able to have fun, but then they're also able to take a break before classes start.
Yeah, no, okay, that's amazing. And then sort of thinking about all of those different components, are you tracking engagement throughout that process? Are you seeing, our students keeping up with the program through orientation to welcome week? Like, how do you measure that during the event, or how do you think about that during the event?
Yeah, I think the last year it's been a little bit difficult for us to track attendance, and so in engagement. We've done a couple of different ways. I think my first year we were utilizing the orientation leaders a lot to do those kind of check-ins with their students, ask folks how they're feeling, tracking attendance on a spreadsheet with pen and paper. Last year we kind of switched to something that's a little bit more digital, and so students were swiping into programs with their student ID cards. But this year, we're actually excited to use Guidebook to use the check-in feature for the sessions. And so I think will help us understand where folks are at. And then we also have gamified our Pacific guides as well. And so I think that'll help track engagement too. And so previously, we have tried to gamify our programs in a couple of different ways, but nothing's really stuck. And so I'm really excited to see that come to life this year.
And what's the plan with that gamification this year? How are you rolling that out? How are you designing it?
Yeah, so we're using a couple of the different forms within Guidebook, and so we're asking folks to connect with folks in the app, so that'll give them a couple of points. We're asking folks to personalize their account, and so making sure that they're logging in and signing up, adding what their interests are. So every time they're interacting with Guidebook and our guide, it's an opportunity for students to earn points. And then we've created a leaderboard. And so at breakfast, we are going to call out, who's the top scorer of the day. And we've packaged little goodie bags for our students. And so the top three at breakfast, lunch, and dinner for our 2 days will be able to get a little goodie bag package. And so I think that'll also increase the competition, because people will kind of be counting on that little call out at the meals. And I think meals is a really great time because you have a captive audience. Everyone's sitting down, eating, enjoying our food. And so I think that's a really great time to do it. We're also building out, or we have built out, a program during one of our events. We shut down about 6 city blocks in downtown Stockton, and we call it Tigers Prowling the Mile. And so it's Stockton's Downtown Miracle Mile, with businesses, shops, places for students to eat, and all of these places partner with the university to give student discounts. And so every time a student goes into a shop or goes into a restaurant, we are asking them to take a selfie in that space and then upload the selfie. And so if they hit all the spots, they'll get hundreds of points, because there's quite a bit of spots on the mile. And so I think that'll also be a really great way to kind of up the ante again, and have a specific program that's focused on that points and that leaderboard system.
Yeah, I love that. I love how well you have thought about that and designed it out. What do you hope that does for the student then? Bringing in that leaderboard feature and the gamification component. If you think about the student, what's the outcome you want to drive for them by doing this?
I think part of it is fun. It's cool to compete with your friends. And I think that element of competition and that element of gamification to something that might be a little bit more boring, or oh, I have to go to this orientation session. Oh, now I have to assess the session. I hope that students kind of get out of that mindset and see it as an opportunity to engage with their peers. And I think that that'll overall contribute to the belonging, especially for this incoming class, because if everyone's participating, it's, oh, I saw you on the leaderboard, or oh, you won the little goodie bag, or how did you get all those points, or oh, I saw you on Miracle Mile, you know, taking selfies, or I was in your selfie. And so I think it'll be fun for us to then collect all of the things that students are submitting as well, to kind of create like an orientation scrapbook. And so I think that I mean, I hope that students have fun and are able to engage in our program in a little bit of a different way. And I hope they get out of the mindset of like, oh, I have to go to orientation, to, oh, I get to go to orientation. And like orientation is fun, and like talk about orientation in a positive way.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. Well, look, I know we're right up on time. So firstly, I really appreciate you coming in and talking to us today. And I'm looking forward to, yeah, I'd love to hear kind of how it all goes this year, and, you know, the execution of all the different components that you've got coming up. But yeah, look, I appreciate you coming in and sharing with us today. It was great to have you on Campus Notes.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Nathan.